I was reborn in the Greater Shanhe Range in 1980. In my previous life, I abandoned her to make something of myself, and she was beaten to death by her in-laws and fed to the wolves. I married someone else, and the 2 children she bore weren't mine. After poisoning the whole family, heaven tossed me back to this little riverside again. That mute girl in the floral cloth dress is still sneaking glances at me. In this life, I'm not going out to make my mark, not fighting anymore. I'm going to marry her, have a whole litter of kids, and die in the Northeast. 1980, the Greater Shanhe Range, Choinggu. I squatted by the little river, scooped up a handful of cold water, and scrubbed my face hard. Behind me came the sound of a bunch of old women beating clothes, their washing bats banging loudly against the stone slabs, while gossiping about whose husband had slipped into the cornfield with whose wife again. I turned my head and took a look. Just one look. That girl in the floral cloth dress was squatting by the river, her hair tied into a thick braid, with a few loose strands blowing back and forth in the wind. She was pounding clothes with a washing bat, and after every 2 hits, she'd secretly lift her head and steal a glance at me. The moment I looked at her, her face turned red, like the fiery sunset clouds on the horizon. Her name was Tian Yulan. When she was little, a high fever damaged her throat, and she became mute. The Tian family were outsiders, and on top of that she was mute, so all the children in the village bullied her. I was the only one who protected her. Later, when I got older, the village kids mocked me for playing with a little girl, and I got embarrassed, so I gradually grew distant from her. In the winter of 1980, her father, Tian Yulan, went up the mountain to gather firewood and had his ribs broken by a wild boar. He managed to crawl back in the dead of winter, and once he got home, he couldn't get up again. Before New Year came, Tian Yulan was married off, in exchange for a 200 yuan bride price to treat her father's illness. But he wasn't saved. He died before they could even get him to the town hospital. In the Northeast, by custom, if someone dies outside, they're not allowed back into the village. The Tian family buried him by their own field. The man Tian Yulan married was a drunk who beat her whenever he got drunk. She was mute, couldn't cry out, couldn't weep, and then she gave birth to a daughter, so her mother-in-law cursed her every day. Within a few years, she hanged herself on the back hill. By the time people found her, the old wolves had torn her into pieces. When old Mrs. Tian heard her daughter was gone, she couldn't catch her breath and died too. That man came to seize the Tian family's house and land, but the men of the village dragged him out and gave him a brutal beating. They nearly sent him down to the underworld to apologize to old man Tian. He slunk away in disgrace. That little girl lost her mother, and the next year she died of illness. And me? I was 19 that year, loafing around the village all day, roaming the mountains and rivers, chasing cats and teasing dogs, a notorious little bully known throughout the neighboring villages. I was almost fully awakened to matters between men and women, and only after Tian Yulan got married did it finally hit me, leaving my heart feeling empty. That New Year, a few hooligans were drinking, and someone said we should go out and make something of ourselves. I was bottling up my frustration, and with the alcohol emboldening me, I secretly forged a letter of introduction and headed south overnight. It happened to be the era of savage growth after reform and opening up. I led a few brothers from the village, and with our strong builds and reckless ferocity, we really made something of ourselves. I hadn't even enjoyed it for 2 years before the 1983 Strike Hard campaign hit. If my childhood buddy hadn't taken all the blame, I figure my family would have had to pay 5 yuan for equipment costs, and I'd have gone to the banks of the Naiha Bridge to be brothers with him in the next world. By the time I got out, I was nearly 40. My parents had gone white-haired overnight, spent all their savings pulling strings for me, and within a few years they were gone too. While I was in prison, I was powerless to help as my younger brother and sister grew up. And from then on, my family became strangers. Aside from visiting their graves every year, I never set foot again in that little courtyard that haunted my dreams until the day I died. After I got out, I caught another wave of opportunity and achieved modest success. In my 40s, I married a wife in her early 30s. Live a stable, peaceful life. Both a son and a daughter graduated from college, and only then did I find out the children weren't mine. But what could I do even if I knew? I was already past 60, half buried in the lusts. Of course I got my revenge. Did they really think I, Shanhe, had been messing around for nothing? None of them would get off well. They all had to die. I spent nearly 20 years behind bars and had no desire to go back in. I made a proper will and donated all my property, contacted some old friends to set up something vicious, and prepared a table full of tampered dishes. The whole family went down together nice and neat to sell salted duck eggs. When I was dying, my life flashed before my eyes like a revolving lantern. I didn't resent that scheming bastard, Didn't he resent my unfaithful wife? And didn't he resent my cold-hearted relatives? I only hated myself for understanding everything too late. I missed out on the girl who used to secretly look at me, missed out on my parents who doted on me, and missed out on the best years of my life. Time can't flow backward, just like beans can't be stewed until tender. If God gave me one more chance, I do want to spend my whole life in this little mountain village, staying with the girl I love, raising a whole brood of children, and living out my days in plain simplicity. And in the end lie buried in this soil with her. I never hit the jackpot once in my life, but before I died, God gave me a top prize ticket. Heaven really opened its eyes. Hey, isn't that the second son of the Lee family? Why is he staring over here so blankly? Loner, has that boy taken a liking to you? In an instant, Tian Yulan's face flushed red as clouds, and she shyly snuck a glance at me. Listening to the women loudly plotting, I snapped back to myself and grinned. Aunties, what are you gossiping about? Let me hear it too. One of the older women replied. What could we be gossiping about? You brat, your eyes were glued so hard to Lon, they nearly went straight. If you like her, have your dad find a matchmaker and propose. Even if you stare holes through her, you still can't stare your way into her bed. Another aunt chimed in. Lon, you're still young, so let Annie tell you. Lear has got such a big sturdy build, dumb as an ox, and he is bound to be strong in bed at night. Marry him, and you'll be blessed. Ha ha ha. A bunch of the women burst into laughter. Tian Yulan buried her face against her chest, the tips of her ears red and glowing. I cocked my chin at the aunties. No wonder you aunties are so well informed. How do you know I'm sweet on Lon? I turned to Tian Yulan. Yulan, how about being my wife? I promise I'll treat you with all my heart. After hearing that, Tian Yulan grew even more embarrassed. In a fluster, she gestured to the aunties. Packed the washed clothes into the water bucket, filled the other bucket with water, hung them on the carrying pole, and was about to run home. I caught up to her in a few long strides, snatched the shoulder pole from her hand, and carried it off toward the east end of the village. Tian Yulan was so anxious she stamped her feet on the spot. Oh, Lee second, have you really taken a fancy to Yulan? Nothing else even happened yet, and you're already carrying water for your father-in-law's family? Once you're married, won't you end up living with them? The older woman laughed again. I let out a big laugh. So what? If we're not married yet, can't I still suck up to my future father-in-law? Then I turned and shouted to Tian Yulan. Come on. What? The son-in-law comes to the door by himself without bringing the daughter along. Tian Yulan shot me a glare. That little bit of charm made my heart go all tingly. With how thick-skinned Lear is, Yulan's bound to end up in his hands sooner or later. And really, with the Lee family's second boy built like that, and Yulan with those wide hips, wouldn't that mean after 3 days of marriage the Kong would collapse? And in 2 years they'd be carrying 3 kids? Ha ha. I carried the shoulder pole and walked in front, swaying along. Tian Yulan followed close behind me, step by step. As we passed along the village road, the young girls and married women looked at us teasingly, and one bold aunt joked, Oh, it's good to be young, so much strength and nowhere to use it. After you finish carrying water to Yulan's house, why not carry 2 buckets for me too? I shot her a sidelong glance. The one speaking was none other than Wang Laoqi's wife, Wu Jinlian. This woman had a pretty face and fair, smooth skin, and her willow leaf brows carried an indescribable seductive charm. She was the must-see attraction of Gully. At least half the men in the village were Wang Laoqi's brothers-in-law. I grinned wide. Who says I've got strength with nowhere to use it? Didn't you see who's following behind me? I'm carrying water for my father-in-law's family. If you want some, have your Wang Laoqi carry it for you. Wu Jinlian arched her fine brows. You little brat, are your pubes even fully grown and you're already thinking about women? Just so happens Laoqi isn't home. Carry 2 buckets of water for your sister-in-law, and I'll take you inside and teach you a few tricks. I'm 19 this year, 1.85 meters tall and 90 kilograms. Standing there, I look like a bear reared up on its hind legs. You can doubt my height, but you can't doubt the size of my little brother. How would you know whether my hair's fully grown? Want me to broaden your horizons so you know what it means when they say a train isn't pushed? Back up a little and be careful, or if I turn around I'll smack you with it. Besides, does your family even need water carried over? Just sit directly on the water jar, wouldn't that work better than a water pipe? Wu Jinlian froze. This kid was usually quiet and sly, so how was his tongue this sharp today? She wasn't one to take a loss either, and put her hand right on the front of her jacket. You think you know whether I can let the water flow? Why don't you come inside with your sister-in-law and let me see how you swing it around? Your sister-in-law won't let you look for nothing. I'll fix you something tasty. Just as I was about to fire back, a small hand gently pushed my shoulder. What the hell? I turned my head on instinct. A small, delicate little face, already red enough to drip blood. Looking at that lovely little face, I chuckled and took a hard look before turning to Wu Jinlian and saying, I'm not like a crude bitch like you. I'm not about to become Wang Laoqi's brother-in-law. Let's go, Lana. I strode away from this place of trouble on my long legs. Wu Jinlian gave a light snort and spat on the ground. You little bastard. You think you can trade barbs with me? If you can outtalk your mama, then she hasn't lived for nothing. On the third or fourth day of the first month, as she fastened the buttons on the front of her jacket, she twisted her big ass and hummed a little tune on her way inside. I continued on with Tian Yulan. Passing the village entrance, I saw from afar a group of old women sitting in a circle under the big willow tree. Their voices were louder than each other's, and bursts of laughter kept coming one after another. Spit flying everywhere, while the work in their hands never stopped. Looking at that group, the notorious intelligence station at the village entrance that would ruin reputations for generations to come, I shivered, grabbed Tian Yulan's little hand, and quickly left. As we walked, I felt dampness in my palm. I'd been holding her hand the whole way, and she was so nervous that a fine layer of sweat had formed in her palm. Sticking to the principle of being thick-skinned and taking full advantage, I pretended not to notice. I only gradually slowed my pace. No matter how long the road, it has an end, let alone a village path. In no time we were at Tian Yulan's front door. She struggled to pull her hand free and glared at me with her apricot eyes full of reproach. My heart stirred. Quick and nimble, she moved to take the shoulder pole from me. I nimbly hopped back and dodged her hand. Her big eyes blinked, full of question marks. Even though she didn't say anything, I understood. What are you doing? I gave a wicked grin and shouted, what are you doing? I've carried it all this way. And now that we're at your door, you want to take it over? Wouldn't that mean I worked for nothing? How am I supposed to make a good impression in front of my father-in-law then? Hearing me shout, Tian Yulan got so anxious she stamped her feet and reached out to cover my mouth. I shook and dodged her, still shouting. As the two of us played around, we gradually moved closer together. The fragrance of a young girl reached the tip of my nose. My expression turned serious. Seeing the change in my face, Tian Yulan turned her head with a huff and squatted on the ground. The loose hairs at the end of her braid brushed against my neck. Looking at the lovely girl squatting on the ground, I swore that in this life I would make sure she lived a good life. I squatted down. I asked seriously, Yulan, do you fancy me or not? If you do, I'll go back and tell my parents right away. Once the harvest is done, I'll marry you and build you a big house. And you can bear me a whole litter of little brats. Then the two of us will be happy for the rest of our lives, and that'll be that. If you don't like me, I'll turn around and leave. Tian Yulan glanced at me timidly and nodded hard. I sprang up with a bounce, pulled her up, and hugged her tightly in my arms, shouting loudly, Yulan, in this life, I won't marry anyone but you. My lips fell on her face like raindrops. She was so shy she couldn't lift her head. Which little bastard is carrying on like a lunatic at my doorstep? If there weren't baskets hanging from that shoulder pole, you'd be up in the sky, wouldn't you? The yelling and cursing from the yard made my expression freeze. And I set Yulan down at super speed and hoisted the shoulder pole again. Fixing my expression, I stuck my head into the yard with a cheeky grin first. Uncle Tian, taking it easy? Yulan's father was stuffing tobacco into his pipe bowl, his hand pausing as he looked at me in surprise. Did you eat be shit, kid? How come your mouth's gotten so sweet today? Calling me Uncle Tian now, instead of Old Tian? I gave him a guilty smile and opened my mouth, but no words came out. If you've got something to say, say it. If you've got to fart, let it out. If not, then scram. Wait, that's not right. Whose shoulder pole are you carrying, you brat? Just then, a little head peeked out from behind my broad frame, a blush still hanging on her oval face. Yulan's father instantly turned green. Shanhe, I'll fuck your damned great-grandmother. How dare you mess with my daughter? Before he even finished speaking, he grabbed the pickaxe handle by the wall and swung it at me. My face went pale with fright. I hurriedly put down the shoulder pole and backed out of the yard, shouting, Lana, hurry and stop your dad. I'll come see you again after a while. Just wait for me to come ask for your hand in marriage. Before I even finished speaking, I took off running. Yulan's father couldn't catch up, so he put down the pickaxe handle, squatted under the eaves, and lit his pipe. After taking a couple of smacking puffs, he asked Tian Yulan, Lana, tell your dad honestly, did that brat bully you? Tian Yulan shook her head, looking in the direction Shanhe had run off, her eyes shining. Old man Tian let out a heavy sigh. Tell that little bastard to have his mother find a matchmaker and come propose. If he likes you, he should hurry up and marry you properly. Being neither named nor recognized will only give people something to gossip about. Tian Yulan nodded firmly. First she looked for a while in the direction Shanhe had left. then frowned and looked at Yulan's father, gesturing with both hands. Yulan's father glared with bristling fury. He wouldn't dare. If he dares look down on you, I'll beat his head till it farts. Don't worry. I saw the way that boy looked at you just now, like he wanted to crush you up and swallow you whole. Just wait for him to come marry you properly. Tian Yulan sighed worriedly and turned to hang up the laundry. Yulan's father stared at the pipe bowl, smoke veiling his weathered face. He was satisfied with Shanhe. Aside from his usual childish fooling around, he had watched all these years how the boy had always looked out for Yulan. When it came to getting things done, he was truly dependable. Whenever anything happened to any family in the village, he would bring his gang of little brothers and genuinely lend a hand. If people from a neighboring village bullied them, he'd grab a weapon and charge in without a trace of fear. A woman marries a man for clothes and food. The Li family had been established locals in Xianggu for decades, so if Yulan married into their family, she surely wouldn't suffer hardship. And from the way that boy looked at Yulan, there was no way she'd be mistreated after marrying him. Looking through all the young bastards in the village, there really wasn't a single one better than Shanhe. Yulan's father stared at the doorway, lost in thought. After leaving old Tian's house, I skipped all the way home, looking exactly like the foolish son of a rich landlord. My home was at the very western end of the village, closest to Yuanbao Mountain outside the village. Because my grandfather lived halfway up the mountain, my dad wanted to build a house over there. The old man kicked him all the way back to the village. The old man said that with my dad's half-baked skills, even if the house were finished and the stove lit by Qingming so they could move in, by May Day it would be rooted to pieces by wild boars. 2 hard smacks on the neck suppressed him on the spot. Just thinking about how deflated Dad looked was hilarious. Before I knew it, I was already standing at the courtyard gate. Looking at the little courtyard that had appeared in my dreams countless times, I felt dazed. In this life, I'll definitely take good care of you all. Before I could finish getting emotional smack, a neck slap came out of nowhere with 0 wind-up, followed by my ear being twisted in a full 100-degree loop. I had just opened my mouth when a calloused hand pinched my cheek. That practice technique was nearly an art. You didn't even need to think to know it was my mom, Comrade Wang Shufan. You brat, why aren't you going inside? Standing here at the gate muttering to yourself? Come on, inside with me. Don't stand in the yard making us a laughingstock. Just wait till we get inside and see how I deal with you. My pupils shook. These familiar lines were every northeastern kid's nightmare. No matter how many years passed, the fear was etched into my bones. I had just wanted to ask why, but one glare from my mom shoved the words straight back down my throat. She dragged me into the house. Seeing this, my dad gave 2 dry coughs and started edging toward the west room, signaling to my younger brother and sister from time to time. Watching this scene, I couldn't help but sigh, damn. He really is my biological dad. It's like I was dug out of a manure pile. My younger sister Li Shanxia's eyes rolled, and she darted into the west room in a flash. My younger brother Li Shanfeng, with 2 rivers hanging under his nose, wiped his snot with his sleeve and said in a muffled voice, Mom, why are you hitting Big Brother? Let go of Big Brother and have him catch grasshoppers for me to eat. If you want to hit someone, hit me. He looked like a hero ready for martyrdom, his eyes so resolute they seemed about to turn into light. Inside, I was in tears. This is what a real brother is. Little bro, this life, your big brother will definitely take you to the top. Smack. Thud. 1 hard slap on the neck and 1 kick, a technique nearly worthy of the Tao. No wonder she was a woman who'd given birth to 4 children. If she'd had 1 less, she never could have trained up to this level. Why are you everywhere? Get over by the wall and stand there, face the wall, and if you want to cry, swallow it back. Kid's dad, you come here too. Li Weidong, who was just about to close the west room door, froze with his hand still on it. Then shot me a questioning look. What did you do to piss your mom off again? I spread my hands innocently. I don't know either. Wang Shufeng glared. What secret messages are you father and son passing right under my nose? What, Li Weidong, showing off, are you? If you're so capable, why don't you go be a telegraph operator? And you, Li did I say you could stand there laughing? Get over by the wall. Back of your head, and heels tight against it, stand up straight. I hurried over to stand beside Li Shanfeng. He whispered, Second brother, I've already gotten hit. Grasshoppers aren't enough. You have to get me some poplar hawk moth larvae to eat. Smack. A skimmer whacked the back of his head. All you ever think about is eating. Stand at attention properly. Wang Shufan took off her shoes and sat cross-legged on the Kong. Li Weidong sat on a stool. It looked like a full-scale family interrogation. Give me a proper explanation what's going on between you and Wu Jinlian? My mind went blank. Me and who? Wu Jinlian? Your Honor, I'm innocent. They probably saw me fooling around in front of Wu Jinlian's house. And the village aunties started running their mouths. I gave a helpless smile and was about to explain, But Wang Shufan waved a hand and cut me off. No one knows a son better than his mother. One look at my expression and she knew the two of us were innocent. Stay away from that slut in the future. If a fine young man gets involved with a slut, will he still be able to get married later? Keep your wits about you for me. I let out a long breath of relief and had just been about to butter my mom up. Stand right there for me. Was I finished talking? What's going on between you and Yulan from old Tian's family? Think it through before you answer. The smile that had just started to rise at the corner of my mouth froze. When Li Weidong heard it was both Wu Jinlian and Tian Yulan, he secretly gave me a thumbs up. But one look from Wang Shufan stopped him cold, and that look clearly said, just wait until tonight. Li Shanhe couldn't help but marvel that the intelligence station at the village entrance truly lived up to its reputation for ruining people's names. Wait, the intelligence station. Li Shanhe thought back, and there seemed to be a familiar figure there. The one holding the dustpan slowly overlapped with the figure sitting cross-legged on the Kong, ruling the Li family with absolute authority. Speak. A drop of cold sweat slowly slid down from Li Shanhe's temple. It wasn't that Li Shanhe was afraid of anything else. He was just afraid his parents would dislike Tian Yulan for being unable to speak. So he hurriedly shot his dad a pleading look for help. His dad got the signal and quickly began soothing Wang Shufan. Kid's mom, calm down. The boy's grown up now, isn't he? And besides, isn't Yulan from old Tian's family pretty good too? I think she's quite good. If not. Before he could finish, Wang Shufan cut him off. Look at you, showing off. You're the only real parent, huh? And I'm the stepmother? Don't think I didn't see that little ungrateful brat giving you signals. Is this about Tian Yulan? What I'm mad about is that this little bastard is forgetting his mother the moment he's got a woman in mind. Pa, he hasn't even married her yet. When he spotted me at the village entrance, he acted like he had wheels of fire under his feet, as if I hadn't given him enough legs. I was over there shooting the breeze with those old women, and this little brat just drifted right past under my nose. As she spoke, she pointed at Li Shanhe with her finger. This kid, the kind who wouldn't even help if the soy sauce bottle fell over at home. But around some young girl, suddenly you're all considerate. First Wu Jinlian, then Tian Yulan. Without somebody holding your reins, are you going to fly up to the sky? You said you were going to check the fish trap, and in the blink of an eye you went off pestering some young girl instead. Li the second, so this is how you check a fish trap, huh? The trap practically ended up in somebody else's water bucket. Listening to Wang Shufan's words, Li Shanhe's heart pounded. Could it be that because of this, his mom would hold a grudge in her heart from now on? Then wouldn't things between me and Yulan be even harder in the future? So he steeled himself and shouted, I just like Tian Yulan. I won't marry anyone but her. Mom, you can't look down on Yulan because she can't speak. Anyway, I won't marry anyone but her in this lifetime. After saying that, he glared at his mom in a huff. Wang Shufan was stunned by what he said. Since when did I ever say I looked down on Yulan? She's pretty and well built. That face of hers, one look and you can tell she's blessed, and those hips. One look and you can tell she's the type to bear grandsons. Me dislike her? If she could take a liking to you, I'd laugh myself to death in my dreams. She's out of your league 10 times over. So what if she can't speak? Those old women in the village, when they start yapping, they're like that busted loudspeaker at the brigade jabbering non-stop and driving people crazy. Better if she can't speak. What I'm mad about is that you already have someone you like, and you're still messing around with that slut and all that nonsense. If I hear any more gossip, I'll break both your legs. When Li Shanhe heard that both his parents approved of the marriage, he was so happy he practically wanted to jump up and dance the cha-cha. Instantly showing exactly what it meant to be overjoyed with success, Yulan said today that she likes me and agreed to marry me. Wang Shufan and Li Weidong exchanged a look and sighed. Li Weidong took a puff from his tobacco pipe and said, Kid's mom, in a bit take some money and bring some things to the back room to see Granny Sunday. Ask her to help make the match for our family and find out how much betrothal gift they want. Let's settle the marriage before the end of the year, and once the field work is done, I'll take her up the mountain to plant a few trees, and next spring we'll build a house. It'll be good for the wedding. Head of the house, let's do it that way. Maybe by next year Lanner will even be pregnant. And we'll be grandpa and grandma too. At that, the two of them couldn't help but smile like proud aunties, chatting away from one thing to another, first about making a tiger head hat, then about what kind of wood to use for a teething stick, leaving Li Shanhe completely baffled. Wait, I remember I'm the one getting married, right? Just like that, it's all settled after only 2 sentences? Dad, Mom, isn't this a bit too rushed? How did we already get to sewing a tiger head hat? Li Weidong and Wang Shufan shot him murderous looks. Li Weidong tapped the sole of his shoe with his tobacco pipe, knocking out the embers inside, then held the handle in his left hand and tapped the bowl against his right palm again and again, looking very much like If you dare say one word of objection, I'll kill you. Li Shanhe said guiltily. It just feels too fast. Li Weidong looked around the ground, grabbed one of Wang Shufin's cloth-soled shoes, and hurled it at Li Shanhe. Li Weidong pointed at Li Shanhe and shouted sternly, "You little bastard, quit messing around with me. Yulan is a decent family's daughter. Today the whole village saw you hauling water for her and getting handsy. If you don't hurry up, who knows how those old women will wag their tongues. Are you going to leave that girl unable to hold her head up? I'm laying it out right now. If you dare do something so heartless, I'll break your legs and dump you in the mountains. Anyway, our third son can support us in old age." Hearing Li Weidong's words, Li Shanhe suddenly understood. He'd been reborn and still thought this was like the modern era, where people date and live together for 5 or 6 years without getting married. At the same time, his heart warmed. This righteous northeastern man, who always had nothing can be lacking except doing the right thing, on his lips. Li Shanhe had grown up in that kind of environment since childhood. So although he was a bit unruly, people in the village didn't dislike him. Li Shanhe said seriously, "Don't worry, Dad. I'll listen to you. In this life, I'm destined to marry Lan'er. I'll definitely be steady and reliable." Hearing this, the expressions on Li Weidong and Wang Shufin's faces softened. Wang Shufin couldn't help sighing with emotion. Who knows what great virtue you accumulated in your past life? Do you remember when you were in middle school? Back when you were shooting up in height and your feet sweated like crazy. You were always complaining that your shoes felt uncomfortable, and in the end, only insoles stuffed with corn husks made them feel a bit better. Do you still remember that? Li Shanhe was stunned. Why bring this up all of a sudden? He quickly started buttering her up. "How could I not remember? That's why I say your handiwork is still the best, Mom. They felt so comfortable. And now harvest is almost here. So how about sewing me a few more pairs?" Wang Shufin shot Li Shanhe a sidelong glance and said irritably, "I think you look like a shoe insole. Why would I dote on you that much? Believe it or not, I'll beat you flat into a shoe insole. I didn't make those. Like hell I had that kind of free time. Your little wife found out about it from who knows where, and stayed up by lamplight burning oil to make them for you. I don't know what kind of dumb luck you brat have to run into such a virtuous girl. I'm telling you, you better behave yourself, and put away any thoughts you shouldn't have. If I find out." Li Shanhe could no longer hear the rest. "Tian Yulan made them for me." That piece of news exploded in Li Shanhe's mind like a nuclear bomb. His heart suddenly felt tight and heavy. Sometimes, missing someone means a lifetime of regret. He secretly swore that in this life, he would make sure Yulan and his family all lived good lives. Ahem, Li Weidong cleared his throat. A man never really grows up until he gets married. But that said, what are your plans for the future? Are you still going to loaf around all day like before and make Yulan starve with you?" Hearing this, Li Shanhe also grew serious, gathered his thoughts, and replied, "Dad, I want to learn hunting from third grandpa. As the old saying goes, live off the mountain by the mountain, live off the water by the water. Our Choyinga backs onto the greater Shanhe range. To have me honestly facing the lusts and toiling in the fields, I'm not willing to accept it. Besides, at this point, Li Shanhe's eyes shone with dazzling light. When Wang Shufin heard that Li Shanhe wanted to go hunting, she was just about to blow up. But Li Weidong stopped her. Li Weidong let out a long sigh. As long as you've thought it through, that's fine. Your third grandpa is also an old lead hunter. After dinner, the two of us will bring some things and go to your third grandpa's house. Once you're in the mountains, you must listen to your third grandpa. If he comes to complain about you, don't blame your dad for getting rough with you. What are you looking around for over there? I'm talking to you. You brat are just asking for a beating." As he spoke, he pulled out his belt, folded it over, and snapped it loudly. Li Shanhe strode steadily and powerfully toward the outer room. His gaze fell on the huge water vat, his eyes firm and focused. He planted his feet shoulder-width apart, bent his knees slightly, and dropped into a standard horse stance. Then he took a deep breath and stretched out both arms, like two iron pythons tightly wrapping around the water vat. With a low shout of "Hey!" Li Shanhe suddenly exerted force, and the vat, originally full of water and incredibly heavy, was actually lifted off the ground by him with ease. The clear water inside the vat rippled in layers from the violent shaking, yet not a single drop splashed out. At this moment, Li Shanhe was like a war god of unmatched strength and overpowering might, holding the vat steady as he raised his brows at Li Weidong and Wang Shufin. The sight left them dumbfounded. Li Weidong patted Li Shanhe's arm, signaling that he could put it down now, and said in shock, "You brat really are something. Are you still my son? Did you run into some kind of opportunity, or what? That arm strength of yours. Truly, if heaven had not given birth to me, the way of the hunt would be an eternal night. As long as I make the slightest move, That mere old forest would be nothing more than a fierce dragon crossing the river. I could flatten it with my eyes closed. The corners of Li Shanhe's mouth lifted slightly, revealing a smug smile, and then he gently raised his brows. In fact, ever since he was reborn, although he hadn't felt anything especially obvious at first, as time passed, he gradually noticed that some wondrous changes were quietly taking place in his body. Just now, he had first carried 2 buckets of water, then jumped around for a while, and had even taken a solid beating, yet after all that, he hadn't even taken a single heavy breath. You had to know that in the past, no matter how strong his build was, he could never have done this. Yet at this moment, aside from a slight cold sweat from being startled by his mother's sudden angry shout, not even a fine bead of sweat had seeped from his forehead. Filled with curiosity and anticipation, Li Shanhe tentatively clenched his fist. In an instant, a power so strong it was hard to believe seemed to explode through his arm. A feeling like a ferocious beast was about to break out of its cage. It was precisely because he truly felt this surging, explosive power within him that's why the scene that had so astonished the two of them happened earlier. Mom, with strength like this in my arms, you can rest assured about me heading into the mountains now, right? Wang Shufeng gave a light snort. The old forest isn't that easy to get through. Follow your third grandpa and learn properly. Be extra careful. Don't go charging around recklessly. Being steady is better than anything. Move aside, don't hold up my cooking. So you can go to your third grandpa's place after eating. Li Weidong, go bring me 2 pieces of firewood. You've got no sense at all. No sooner had she finished speaking than she deftly got the fire going and started cooking. And Li Weidong also hurried off to fetch firewood. Seeing that no one was paying him any attention, Li Shanhe dejectedly carried over a small stool and went to sit in the middle of the yard. Sitting on the stool, with a cigarette hanging from his mouth, he looked up at the sky, not knowing what he was thinking about. The grin on his face was so wide you could see his back teeth. Second brother, when are you going to get me some poplarkin worms to eat? A muffled voice reached Li Shanhe's ears. Li Shanhe practically rolled his eyes to the sky. Today had really opened his eyes. What a case of forgetting the pain once the wound healed. Looking at Li Shanfeng wiping his nose with his sleeve, Li Shanhe sighed inwardly. For the sake of how you were ready to risk yourself to save your brother just now, this life of yours, big brother will make sure it's all properly arranged. He rubbed Li Shanfeng's shiny, gleaming bald head and said, Eat my ass, poplarkin worms. Just wait, your brother will catch you a rabbit to eat. Li Shanfeng's eyes lit up green. Second brother, it's a deal, okay? When the time comes, you can have the hind legs, and I'll just eat the front legs. Watching Li Shanfeng romp around happily, Li Shanhe shook his head helplessly and casually smacked him. Come on, time to eat. After the meal, your brother's still got things to do. With that, he went into the house and sat down by the edge of the Kong. In Li Shanhe's home, they normally used a traditional Kong table. The Kong table was neither too big nor too small, just enough for the whole family to sit around it. Whenever it was time to eat, the family would gather around it in lively fashion, placing the steaming, fragrant dishes on the table. In that small space, it was filled with warmth and the feeling of family. Although it was just an ordinary Kong table, for Li Shanhe's family, it carried countless beautiful memories and deep family affection. Toward evening, as the sun set, its afterglow streamed through the window and fell on the old wooden table in the room. On the table sat a steaming basin of shredded radish soup. In the milky white broth floated strip after strip of translucent radish, giving off an enticing aroma. Beside it was a plate of bright green scallions and a small bowl of richly colored soybean paste. Li Shanhe eagerly sat down at the table, picked up a bowl of sorghum rice and water, and started digging in with loud slurps. Li Shanhe ate with great relish and finished one bowl in no time. Without pausing, he immediately served himself another and kept wolfing it down. Amid the slurping sounds, he quickly polished off the second and third bowls of sorghum rice and water. At last, he set down his bowl and chopsticks in satisfaction, casually wiped his mouth with his rough, big hand, and then let out a long, full burp. That burp seemed like the highest praise for the delicious dinner, and also announced that he was full and satisfied. He casually lit a cigarette and handed one to Li Weidong too. After father and son finished smoking, they got up and prepared to head to third grandpa's house. Li Shanhe carried a bucket of corn liquor and a few strings of dried goods, and followed his father out the door. On the way, they ran into a few neighbors who, seeing what Li Shanhe was carrying, joked, Yo, where are you headed? Looks like you've got some big business to discuss. Li Shanhe laughed and responded a few times, then hurried on. When they arrived at third grandpa's house, he was sitting in the yard cleaning his gun. When he saw the two of them coming, third grandpa smiled until his eyes narrowed. But then he noticed what Li Shanhe was carrying, and his face immediately fell. He opened his mouth and started cursing. Dabaozi, you've really grown some nerve, huh? What? You don't acknowledge me as your third uncle anymore. Coming to my house with gifts, just you explain yourself properly. Dabaozi was Li Weidong's childhood nickname, and seeing his old man standing there with his neck tucked in, he looked even more like a grandson than Li Shanhe, the real grandson. Third grandpa's name was Li Baoqing. He and Li Shanhe's grandfather, Li Baokai, were not biological brothers. But according to what Li Shanhe had heard from his grandfather, when the Japanese invaders came, more than 30 paternal cousins from their village enlisted together, fighting the Japanese and then Chiang Kai-shek. In the end, only his grandpa Li Baokai, second grandpa Li Baodian, and third grandpa Li Baocheng were left. When peace finally seemed at hand, the surviving cousins were arranged by the organization to return to their roots. But after the three brothers talked it over, they figured that only the three of them were left, and they had no face to go back, so they simply decided to settle down in the Northeast. That's how they finally made a life there. They had originally been brothers on the same family register, and they had been through life and death together, so though they weren't biological brothers, they were closer than brothers. Li Shanhe's father, Li Weidong, don't be fooled by how decent he looks now, was quite a bastard when he was young, and Li Shanhe took after him in that regard. He'd been disciplined plenty by second grandpa and third grandpa, which was why he stood in such awe of third grandpa. Seeing his father's appearance, Li Shanhe hurried forward to explain for him. Third grandpa, it has nothing to do with my dad. He just happened to bring this along for me on the way. Here's the thing, I'm getting married to Yulan from the Tian family. I can't let my wife and kids follow me and starve on nothing. We've got the Shingen Mountains at our back, so no matter what, I ought to be able to scrape something out of the mountains to support a wife and kids. If I don't go out and make something of myself, then this big frame of mine would have grown for nothing. As soon as third grandpa heard that Li Shanhe was getting married, his face lit up at once. During the war, he had no idea where he'd been injured, but it had left him unable to have children. So he and third grandma had spent their whole lives together as just the two of them, and he had always treated Li Shanhe like his own grandson. People tend to cherish most what they don't have, and when he heard Li Shanhe say he was getting married, turning over a new leaf too, and planning to head into the mountains to support a wife and children, he quickly said, "Getting married is good. That girl from the Tian family is good too. You can tell at a glance she's the kind to bear healthy children. Hurry up and put a whole litter in her belly. Then I'll be a great grandpa too. But you brat really do look promising now you've become a real man. Taking you into the mountains is nothing, but why are you bringing stuff to me when it's not even a holiday or special occasion? Take it back right now," Li Shanhe said with a grin. "Third grandpa, I didn't bring this because I'm asking you for a favor. This is your eldest grandson specially bringing something to honor you, 3-year aged corn liquor. Would my dad even know how to appreciate it? Giving it to him would be a complete waste. So I brought it here to honor you. And these dried goods too, aren't they for your eldest grandson to bring over as something to go with your drinks? Stir-fried hazel mushrooms with hot peppers, just thinking about how fresh and tasty it is." Third grandpa raised his brows. "You kid really do know how to talk. Look at your dad, all pathetic looking, just seeing him annoys me. What's the point of drinking with only vegetables? Tomorrow third grandpa will take you up the mountain, and we'll bring back some wild game. We'll call your grandpa and your second grandpa too, and we old men can have a few drinks. All right, put the stuff down. And you too, Dabaozi. You're already a grown man, yet you can't talk as well as a little kid. You can't squeeze a fart out of yourself with 3 whacks. There's a stool over there. Hurry up and sit down." Li Shanhe looked like he was about to burst out laughing, but Li Weidong shot him a fierce glare, and he immediately settled down and sat. Then a kindly voice came over. "Old man, who are you talking to? We got company at home." "Old woman," Dabaozi brought her over. Tap tap. The sound of slippers dragging on the floor came over. The voice arrived before the person did. "Oh, Er's here. I heard you got tangled up with that little girl from the Tian family today." Li Shanhe was speechless. So third grandma was part of the village rumor mill too. He thought to himself, but his body was honest, and he sprang to his feet at once. Li Weidong also sprang up at once. Third auntie and third grandma almost spoke at the same time. Standing up and greeting elders when you see them is something ingrained in every northeastern child. "Hey, sit, sit, sit. Shanhe, tell grandma what exactly happened." "Ahem, ahem." Third grandpa, off to the side, cleared his throat and said, "Is getting ready to marry the little girl from the Tian family. This time he came to have me teach him how to work the mountain." Third grandma beamed with joy when she heard the news. She took Li Shanhe's hand and chattered on for a while longer. Seeing that it was getting dark, third grandpa looked at third grandma, who still showed no sign of stopping, and said to Li Weidong, "Dabaozi, It's getting late. Take her back. Just have her come find me tomorrow." Then he turned and instructed Li Shanhe again. No need to come too early tomorrow. If it's too early, there'll be fog in the woods, and we won't be able to get in. Head back." Li Shanhe nodded and followed Li Weidong home. Li Weidong walked in front, and Li Shanhe followed behind. The whole way, neither father nor son said a word. When they reached the front door, Li Weidong stopped, turned around to face Li Shanhe, and fumbled around in the pockets on his clothes, and finally pulled out a crumpled half-pack of Daxing'anling from his jacket pocket. He took one and stuck it at the corner of his mouth, then handed one to Li Shanhe. Li Shanhe froze for a moment, then solemnly reached out with both hands and accepted the crumpled Daxing'anling. With a scratch, Li Shanhe struck a match, carefully shielding the flame with his hand as he held it out to Li Weidong. Li Weidong also cupped Li Shanhe's hand with both of his and lit his cigarette, then gently patted the back of Li Shanhe's hand. Li Shanhe pulled his hand back, tilted his head, and lit his own cigarette, waved the match to put out the flame, casually tossed it to the ground, and stamped out the lingering spark. He took a deep drag and slowly exhaled a long stream of smoke. Father and son looked at each other in silence, with only the glowing cigarette tips flickering in the mountain village night along with the chirping insects. After they finished smoking, Li Weidong gave Li Shanhe's shoulder a heavy pat with his hand, grinned and said, "You little rascal, not bad. Come on, let's go home and sleep. Get a good rest tomorrow. You still have to go into the mountains with your third grandpa." Li Shanhe knew that in his father's heart, he was no longer a child. He was already a full-grown man who could support a household. This was a northeastern child's special coming-of-age ceremony. People in later generations always said that a northeastern child's coming-of-age ceremony was a train ticket heading south. But in Li Shanhe's view, a northeastern child's coming-of-age ceremony was a cigarette from his father, a look of approval, or even a light pat on the shoulder. This was the land he loved deeply, and the men here were like this land, too deep, solid, yet not good at expressing themselves. Li Shanhe answered irrelevantly, "Dad, don't worry. I will definitely let Grandpa and Grandma, you and Mom, my younger brothers and sisters, and Yulan live a good life." Li Weidong gave him a smack on the back of the neck and glared as he said, "You little bastard, showing off, are you? Your grandparents are here, and so am I. Do we need you for that? Your old man is still in his prime, who knows? I might even give you another younger brother or sister. You think I need you to support me? You'll be better off just living your own little life, well, than anything else. If I ever hear that you're bullying Yulan, if I don't break your legs, then I'm not your father." The fatherly love he had finally managed to feel was knocked right back out of him with that smack on the neck. Just as he was about to speak, he heard his mother calling, "What are you two father and son doing standing at the gate instead of coming into the yard? Playing door gods or what? Get your asses in here and go to sleep, now." "Coming, wife." Li Weidong's instant change of face left Li Shanhe dumbfounded. Shaking his head, he went back to the west room to sleep. After soaking his feet, Li Shanhe lay on the kong, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep at all, while Li Shanfeng beside him was sleeping soundly. Li Shanhe felt as if this whole day had been a dream, and he didn't quite dare fall asleep. He was afraid that once he woke up, he'd return to that era without Yulan. With all kinds of wild thoughts swirling in his mind, he eventually drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Wang Shufan woke him up bright and early. Still groggy, he rubbed his face, rinsed his mouth, and sat down at the table. He wolfed down his meal, and only then did he finally feel awake. After clearing the table, he saw Wang Shufan carrying over a pile of things and instructing him. "These are cornmeal pancakes, freshly griddled this morning. This is chunky pickled vegetables, eat it with the pancakes. This is a leather water bag. You can't just drink the water in the mountains casually. Listen to your third grandpa more." As Li Shanhe listened, his eyes reddened, and he threw his arms around Wang Shufan. Wang Shufan froze for a moment, patted Li Shanhe on the back, and went on, "Be a little more careful in everything. Nothing is better than you coming back safe and sound. You're all grown up already, and you're still pulling this? Get going." Li Shanhe took the bundle Wang Shufan had packed for him, slung it over his back, and turned to leave the yard. As the saying goes, when a son travels far, his mother worries. Standing at the yard gate, Wang Shufan watched Li Shanhe's receding figure and couldn't help but have her eyes redden as well. Li Shanhe seemed to sense something too without turning his head. He waved his hand and quickened his pace. When Li Shanhe arrived at the gate of Third Grandpa's house, before he even went in, he saw Third Grandpa in the yard sorting out his gear. Third Grandpa looked up, saw the bundle on Li Shanhe's back, and couldn't help teasing him. "Are you heading into the mountains or fleeing a famine? Why are you bringing so much stuff? Put it all down. Just stick a little dry rations on you, and bring some water, that's enough. We're not going into the deep old forest today anyway. It hasn't snowed yet, and it hasn't frozen over. The old forest is covered in leaves 1 step deep, 1 step shallow, and you can't even see where the pits are. Put the stuff down. You know how to use a sleeve gun, right? Come here and take this stuff with you. I prepared it all for you. Before Shanhe could even nod, Third Grandpa handed the gun to him. In fact, Third Grandpa knew Shanhe knew how to use a gun. The brothers had all rolled through the battlefield, after all. What family didn't have a few weapons? Especially Shanhe's grandfather. Rumor had it that a few years back he found an abandoned Japanese stronghold in the mountains. Type 38 rifles, Nambu pistols, Mauser C96s, supposedly there were even melon seed bazookas. That's also why the old man lived halfway up the mountain. The truth was, there was just no way to bring all those good things into the village. Shanhe clicked and fiddled with the gun, and when he found there were no bullets loaded, he couldn't help curling his lip. Seeing the look of disdain on Shanhe's face, Third Grandpa went up and smacked him on the neck. What kind of look is that, you brat? Wet behind the ears and still trying to act capable. Why would you load bullets before even entering the mountain? And this too. Strap the machete to your back, tuck the hand knife at your waist, tighten your gaiters and wrist guards, put on your hat, grab the sack, and get ready to set off. Shanhe packed up his things with a grin, packing away everything that needed to be packed. Looking at how Shanhe was dressed now, Third Grandpa couldn't help nodding. You finally look halfway decent. Let's go. As they walked, Shanhe said, Third Grandpa, where are the two of us hunting today? To Yuanbao Mountain. Where else? With a greenhorn like you, how would I dare take you straight into the deep old forest on your first time? Pay close attention for me in a bit. Watch carefully how I do things. I happened to set some snares in the mountains a few days ago, so let's go see if we've got any catch today. Old lady, I'm heading into the mountains. Hey, got it. Take good care of her, and be extra careful. After speaking to Third Grandpa took Shanhe and the 2 dogs and walked out through the courtyard gate. Let me tell you, there are a lot of rules in these woods. You can't sit on a big tree stump that's the mountain god's chair, and you can't fight the mountain god for a seat. When traveling through the woods, you can't keep your head down the whole time. You never know when a branch from a tree that was struck by lightning might fall and kill someone when you get game in the mountains, the entrails and such. You have to feed some to the hunting dogs. Dogs are like people, aren't they, risking their lives going into the mountains with you for a bite of meat? As he spoke, he patted the dogs' heads. Good dogs, good dogs. The dogs seemed to understand Third Grandpa's words and wagged their tails hard as they circled around him. And one more most important thing. Never point the muzzle at a person, no matter whether your gun is loaded or not. Shanhe nodded heavily. Let's go. It was early autumn in the mountains. Although the weather was gradually turning cooler, the environment in the old forest was still full of challenges. The early autumn fog was thick, especially in the morning and evening, with extremely low visibility, and a moment of carelessness could make you lose your way. The temperature difference between day and night was huge. Daytime might still be warm and pleasant, but by night, the temperature would plummet and the cold would become biting. Without enough warm gear, it was easy to become hypothermic. In addition, September was also a season when wild animals were especially active, especially large animals like black bears and wild boars, which might unexpectedly run into humans while foraging, bringing potential danger. Shanhe followed closely behind Third Grandpa, taking every step with extreme care and caution. His eyes never left Third Grandpa's figure, and his ears were pricked up like a rabbit's, constantly alert to any slight movement or instruction from him. The 2 of them, along with the dogs, moved through the mountain forest, and before long they reached the area where the snares had been set. Third Grandpa crouched down to check the first snare and saw that a wild rabbit had been caught and was struggling desperately. Third Grandpa skillfully removed the rabbit and put it into the sack, smiling as he said to Shanhe, "Look, not bad luck." But when he checked the next snare, he found it empty, with some messy footprints around it. Third Grandpa frowned slightly and, after observing carefully, said, "Looks like a fox came by and carried off the prey." As they went farther ahead, the dogs suddenly became alert and growled softly at a patch of grass. Third Grandpa grabbed Shanhe and signaled for him not to make a sound. Just then, a fiery red fox darted out. Shanhe raised his gun to shoot, but Third Grandpa quickly stopped him, pulling Shanhe behind a tree to hide, and even the 2 hunting dogs hunkered down. In a low voice he said, "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" That fox spirit was obviously being chased by something big, when suddenly a rustling sound came, and out of the patch of grass the fox had just burst from emerged a wild boar. The boar looked truly terrifying, with an enormous body. Its entire body was covered in dark brown bristles standing straight up, like steel needles. Its tusks curved outward, gleaming with a cold light, like two scimitars. Its eyes were small, yet they shone with a vicious glint, snorting and breathing heavily as it constantly sniffed the scent in the air. Third Master patted Li Shanhe's arm and signaled with his eyes for him not to act rashly. At such close range, if one shot didn't kill the boar outright, then the ones left on the mountain today would be the two of them, and in pieces scattered here and there at that. Wild boars are omnivorous animals. Just then, all of a sudden, a crisp gunshot tore through the stillness above the forest. Immediately after, they saw that on the rear of the huge, razor-tusked wild boar. It was as if a crimson blood blossom had burst open, with blood splattering everywhere. In the blink of an eye, threads and streaks of blood quickly stained the boar's eyes red, making its already fierce gaze become even more savage and terrifying. Gravely wounded, the boar instantly went berserk, charging wildly through the woods like a mad beast, breaking trees and sending branches and leaves flying wherever it went. And the dogs that had been following along, the moment they heard the gunshot, seemed as if they had received some kind of command to attack. In an instant, they arched their bodies and then shot out like two arrows released from a bow, lunging straight at the enraged wild boar. Third Master, standing to the side and witnessing this sudden turn of events, was so furious his face turned ashen and the veins on his forehead bulged. He stared wide-eyed and kept cursing. Which bastard caused this fucking mess? Li Shanhe, on the other hand, stared blankly at the chaotic scene before him and secretly wondered. I was wondering how this damn thing got here. Turns out it had been driven all the way here by someone. At this critical moment, the wild boar that had originally been hiding in the grass had somehow silently darted to the side of where Third Master and Li Shanhe were. Its huge and hideous body suddenly burst out from the dense vegetation, instantly exposing itself in the two men's field of vision. When this boar caught sight of the two upright humans standing before it with rifles in hand, it seemed to lock onto them as its targets at once. Its eyes, full of wildness and fury, stared fixedly at Third Master and Li Shanhe, while its mouth let out a low, vicious series of grunts, like muffled thunder rolling by, making one's skin crawl. Then, accompanied by an ear-splitting roar, the huge wild boar charged ferociously at the two of them like a heavy truck out of control. Everywhere it passed, the grass and trees were knocked askew by its tremendous impact. Without the slightest hesitation, Third Master raised his hand and pulled the trigger in an instant. With a bang. However, before he even had time to see whether the shot had hit its mark, he quickly turned his head, grabbed Li Shanhe beside him, and shouted, "Split up and run." Before his words had even finished falling, the two of them dashed off in different directions like arrows loosed from a bow. Yet the ferocious wild boar seemed completely unaffected by that last shot, its speed not decreasing in the slightest as it charged straight at them. Its sharp tusks flashed with a cold gleam, and bursts of heavy breath sprayed from its mouth, as if it wanted to tear apart and devour the prey before it. The two split up and fled, but the wild boar seemed to ignore Third Master completely and charged straight at Li Shanhe. Seeing this, Li Shanhe cursed inwardly. Damn it. This is my first time coming into these deep mountains and old forests. I haven't even done anything, so why is it fixated on me? As he ran for dear life, he kept muttering, "Why the hell are you chasing me? I wasn't the one who fucked your asshole, so why the fuck are you so fixated on mine?" Even though Li Shanhe dodged left and right with all his might, the wild boar still refused to let up, locking onto him and chasing him relentlessly all the way. Just as the boar's tusks were practically about to jab into his lower back, Third Master was behind them, firing the old hunting gun again and again. The blast shaking pine cones loose from the branches in a steady shower. But that beast acted like it was deaf, its eyes blood red, hooves tearing up black soil as it stayed fixed on Li Shanhe. And so, a heart-stopping chase between man and boar unfolded through the mountain forest. Li Shanhe was running so hard the back flap of his clothes had flipped up, and just as he saw an earthen ledge ahead, the guy suddenly ground the soles of his feet against the ground and twisted his waist into a sudden stop. He spat out a gob of phlegm and dropped his center of gravity. To hell with it. I'm not running anymore. He flung his gloves to the ground and took up a horse stance. At that moment, Third Master saw Li Shanhe suddenly stop, and his heart leaped into his throat, nearly making him jump up. He thought to himself, "Holy shit, it's this kid's first time in the mountains, he better not do something stupid." Just as Third Master was frantic with worry, an astonishing scene unfolded. He saw Li Shanhe stare fixedly at the charging boar, react with lightning speed, sidestep past it as it brushed by, then lift his leg and give it a fierce kick. The boar went barreling stiffly toward a large pine tree nearby. With a thunderous crash, The pine cones on the branches came raining down. The recoil knocked Li Shanhe onto his ass, and the crotch of his pants ripped open with a loud tear. The boar staggered on a twisted hoof, spun around 3.5 times, then plopped into a muddy pit, its tusks plowing 2 furrows through the black soil. As the boar struggled to get back up, Li Shanhe saw this, and a ruthless thought flashed through his mind. You still want to stand up? Don't you even know the most basic rule in the Northeast? Once you're down, you don't get hit? And you're still trying to rise? Li Shanhe sprang up like a black bear pouncing on prey, his hands clamping onto the boar's tusks like iron pincers. Today I'll give you a northeastern big spin. With a forceful twist of his waist, he actually swung the 300-pound beast clear off the ground. The boar in his hands looked like a tattered sack. Bang, bang, bang. It smashed into 3 old oak trees in a row, blasting bark everywhere like firecrackers. Yet unexpectedly, he had only swung it a couple of times when the boar's razor-sharp tusks suddenly snapped. The boar with the broken tusks shot off into the distance like an arrow loosed from a bow, and finally slammed hard into a thick tree not far away, as stout as a giant, before bouncing off. As a dull impact echoed all around, even the big tree trembled slightly, as if startled by the sudden force of the blow. Li Shanhe froze for a moment, then curled his lip. That thing was way too fragile. I hadn't even really started, and you were already down, completely forgetting how pathetically you were being chased just now. With a bang, before Li Shanhe could come to his senses, that second brother pig actually hit someone after being flung away. Zhu Big Head from the neighboring village hurriedly called people over to lift the wild boar up. The young man pinned underneath quickly scrambled to his feet, but he was a complete mess. It turned out that when the boar's belly hit the tree just now, it got the shit knocked out of it, splattering the young man all over. Covered from head to toe in pig shit, the young man was so furious his nose practically twisted crooked, and immediately cursed. Are those 2 holes above your mouth just for breathing? Didn't you see someone was here? Fuck, I think you did it on purpose. Maybe the pig shit had gone to his head, because after seeing Li Shanhe's incredible strength, he still kept mouthing off, and the more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Right then, he raised his hunting rifle and aimed it at Li Shanhe, roaring at him. Get the fuck over here and lick it clean for me. Seeing the other man pointing a gun at him, Li Shanhe's expression immediately turned cold. He raised his own gun and pointed it at the young man too, and the atmosphere instantly grew tense. Seeing this, third grandpa spat hard on the ground and raised his gun. Zhu Big Head, what's this supposed to mean? Forgotten the mountain rules, have you? What? You saw my eldest grandson deal with this bastard and came over to reap the benefits? If you've really got any balls, then leave the 2 of us here in these mountains today, and see whether my big brother can bring people over and wipe out your whole village. Li Shanhe followed up. The pig hit the tree, and he hit the pig. Looks to me like pig shit got poured straight into his brain. Third grandpa, don't worry. With me here today, they won't kill me with a single shot. The ones getting buried here today will be them. Backed by the mountain and facing the water, this is just the right kind of place to bury people, perfect for taking them out and leaving them here. As he spoke, he held the gun in one hand and pulled the knife from his waist with the other. The 2 of them faced off against the crowd opposite without the slightest loss of nerve. Seeing this, Zhu Big Head broke out in a cold sweat. And in Li Shanhe's eyes, Zhu Big Head saw nothing but pure killing intent. He swiftly snatched the gun from the young man's hands, put the safety on, and then kicked him to the ground. Lu Monsong, I never should have brought you out today. Have you forgotten all the rules passed down by our ancestors? Damn it, when it came to that bastard, you had no guts at all. And if you hadn't backed off like a coward, would that bastard have gotten away? But now you've suddenly got nerve with other people? If you hadn't begged me for your life, would I have brought you into the mountains? Who the fuck are you trying to put on a show for with me? His mouth was like a machine gun, spraying abuse nonstop. Lu Monsong's face turned red from being scolded, and he craned his neck and shouted, Rules? What fucking rules? Didn't the old rules also say everyone present gets a share? Ask them whether they give us any. Hearing this, Li Shanhe let out a cold laugh and put away his gun, then pulled out the machete from his back. With a ferocious look on his face, he slowly walked toward Lu Monsong. Terrified, Lu Monsong scrambled backward 2 steps, then felt he had lost face, and blustered weakly. Li Lao, what are you trying to do? In broad daylight, you want to kill someone? Li Shanhe gave a contemptuous smile and kicked Lu Monsong aside. Get the hell out of the way, you clueless idiot. He kicked Lu Monsong aside and walked over to the wild boar. At that moment, everyone around widened their eyes, staring at Li Shanhe with faces full of terror. They saw him remain completely calm, and with just one hand, He effortlessly lifted that massive wild boar with its razor-sharp tusks. Then, a cold flash glinted in his hand as an incomparably sharp chopper came down in a fierce swing. With a dull splat, the wild boar was instantly split in two. Bright red blood splattered everywhere, and the boar's organs and intestines spilled all over the ground. The scene was simply too gruesome to look at, utterly shocking. Seeing such a bloody and terrifying scene, Lu Moncong immediately felt his stomach churn and couldn't help but retch. But Li Shanhe didn't care in the slightest. He merely lifted the tip of his foot lightly and gave what seemed like a casual flick, and the half of the boar's steaming carcass on the ground shot straight toward Zhu Big Head and the others like a cannonball. Li Shanhe's gaze stabbed straight at Zhu Big Head like a sharp sword, and he said coldly, "I dare give it to you. But do you fucking dare take it?" Seeing this, Lu Moncong, standing to the side, his face changing, shouted angrily, "Li Shanhe, what exactly do you mean? Are you trying to break the rules here?" However, in the face of Lu Moncong's questioning, Li Shanhe didn't even give him a proper glance. He kept staring fixedly at Zhu Big Head and pressed on. "So, do you want it or not? If you're a real man, then fucking say something." At this moment, Zhu Big Head was so unnerved by Li Shanhe's fierce stare that his whole body bristled, cold sweat streaming down his forehead. Trembling, he looked at the blood-covered machete in Li Shanhe's hand, his lips quivering as he was just about to say something in explanation. Meanwhile, Lu Moncong was absolutely furious, feeling that he had been completely ignored by everyone, and his already dark face had turned bright red with anger, like a fully ripened apple. The veins on his neck bulged out, and he yelled at the top of his lungs, "Li Shanhe, so what if we took your stuff? Humph. If you've got the guts, then stab me and dump me in the deep mountains to feed the wild beasts." Just then, Li Shanhe had truly had enough of Lu Moncong's endless yapping and cursing. Without another word, he leaped up and drove a vicious kick straight at Lu Moncong. With a heavy thud, Lu Moncong's sturdy body flew far away like a kite with its string cut, before crashing heavily to the ground. Yet even after taking such a heavy blow, Lu Moncong still refused to shut up and kept muttering. Seeing this, the fire in Li Shanhe's heart instantly blazed even hotter. He lunged forward in a single stride, planted his foot hard on Lu Moncong's chest, and roared through clenched teeth, "Quit fucking spewing shit here. If you dare say one more goddamn word, I'll cut your tongue right out right now. And you too. Zhu Big Head, did you fucking leave your vocal cords at home? Fine, since none of you are opening your mouths. Then let me ask you this. Who the hell fired that shot just now and startled that beast? You all saw it with your own eyes if I didn't have a bit of skill. If it had been anyone else, they'd probably have been back in the village having a funeral feast by now. Enough. Quit playing dumb and tell me clearly now." Hearing Li Shanhe's questioning, Zhu Big Head and the group behind him all turned their eyes in unison toward Lu Moncong lying on the ground. One of them couldn't help complaining, "Oh my god, what rotten luck from 8 lifetimes, how come this bastard is involved everywhere?" At this moment, Li Shanhe was already furious beyond measure, the killing intent in his heart surging like a raging tide. He suddenly reached out and pulled an incomparably sharp dagger from his waist, the blade glinting with a cold light that sent a chill through anyone who saw it. Then, he took 2 more steps forward and stomped Lu Moncong's whole body under his foot as if he wanted to grind him to pieces on the spot. "Zhu Big Head, take this roe deer away from me. Today, just treat it as if someone got lost after going into the mountains. Got it?" Li Shanhe's eyes were wide as he glared viciously at the fellow in front of him, called Zhu Big Head. Back in his previous life, Li Shanhe had never been the kind of person to behave meekly and let others bully him. Back then, he went south to make his fortune, surrounded by a group of strong, burly men. But they didn't have any special skills if they weren't being big brothers. Were they supposed to go haul bricks for other people? Today, Li Shanhe truly had murder in his heart. If his body hadn't mutated after being reborn, he probably would have lost his life here today. Brother, don't be impulsive. We don't want this roe deer anymore. How about I compensate you with another roe deer? After all, he's one of the men I brought out. If I can't bring him back in one piece, I won't be able to explain myself either. How about this starting from now on, I absolutely won't bring him into these mountains again. Even if he insists on coming in by himself, if he happens to run into you. Whether he lives or dies then will be up to you, alright? Zhu Big Head said with a face full of ingratiating smiles, speaking cautiously as he hurried to explain. Just then, Third Master, standing to the side, gently shook his head at Li Shanhe and said in a low voice, there are so many people watching here. No telling which loudmouth might start babbling nonsense. There's no need for us to lower ourselves to the level of a bastard like this. It's better to think long term. Li Shanhe kicked Lu Monsong away. I'm taking the roe deer. Now hurry up and get this plague-ridden thing out of here. Li Shanhe roared angrily. Zhu Big had hurriedly set the roe deer in his hands gently on the ground, then anxiously waved for his men to come over and support Lu Monsong. Lu Monsong's face was as pale as paper, and his body swayed unsteadily, clearly showing he had been badly hurt. Just like that, a group of people crowded around him like a pack of stray dogs, and left in a miserable, bedraggled state. As they passed by Li Shanhe, Lu Monsong, who had been hanging his head, suddenly looked up. In his bloodshot eyes flickered a venomous hatred that made one's heart quail as he stared fixedly at Li Shanhe, as if he wanted to swallow him alive. Faced with such a vicious gaze, Li Shanhe merely narrowed his eyes slightly, and a faint, almost imperceptible sneer curled at the corner of his mouth. He thought to himself, what a damn death wish. He's been beaten into this state, and still won't submit. If I don't come up with a way to finish him off, sooner or later he'll be trouble. At that thought, a cold glint flashed through Li Shanhe's eyes, secretly making up his mind to get rid of this beyond as soon as possible. Watching the group withdraw from the forest, Lier quickly called Third Master over to start packing up the game. After such a heart-stopping upheaval just now, even Third Master, who had been through countless battles and storms, could not help but feel a trace of weariness slowly welling up in his heart. He slowly pulled a piece of deerskin from his chest, carefully spread it out flat, and gently placed it under his backside, then calmly sat down on the slightly damp ground. Right after that, Third Master reached into the cloth pouch he carried with him and took out a small pinch of pressed tobacco leaves, skillfully and gently packing them into the old tobacco pipe bowl that had accompanied him for many years. As the sparks flashed, wisps of smoke slowly rose. Third Master took a deep pull of the rich tobacco aroma and contentedly blew out ring after ring of smoke. At the same time, Third Master was filled with emotion. It seems that from now on, this forest will ultimately become the young people's domain. Thinking back to Li Shanhe's astonishing performance just now, whether it was the shocking strength he displayed when he swung his thick fists and fiercely struck that savage wild boar, or the calm, well-reasoned way he stood his ground against Zhu Big Head and the other thugs, or the merciless, decisive way he dealt with the formidable Lu Monsong, all of it made Third Master sincerely admire and praise him. Especially when he thought about how Li Shanhe could possess such outstanding ability and courage at such a young age, Third Master could not help but nod repeatedly in praise, and affirmed that he was fit to make a living as a mountain hunter. However, although Third Master was full of confidence in Li Shanhe, he still could not help but feel worried about the deep hatred that had just been forged by this conflict. So Third Master took the initiative and said to Li Shanhe, how about I sneak over tonight and send the two of them some fragrant melon seeds? Then the whole family can be together nice and neat. And we won't have to worry about dealing with the old ones after hitting the young ones. Otherwise, we'd have to sleep with one eye open. I really can't relax. Hearing Third Master's fierce words, Li Shanhe could not help but sigh. Old ginger is still spicier. A family reunion, Li Baoqing indeed deserved his name. As expected of someone who had lived through the war years, he was talking about sending that whole family downstairs with 2 grenades. Hearing Third Master's words of concern, Li Shanhe suddenly felt a warm current rise from the bottom of his heart and instantly flow through his whole body. However, he did not accept Third Master's kindness, and instead smiled and reassured him. Third Master, don't worry. That useless piece of trash isn't worth you making a move. Just wait and see if I let that brat live until hanging up the hoe. I'll write my name backward. After saying that, the two exchanged a smile, then began cleaning up and packing away today's catch. Li Shanhe skillfully picked up the gutting knife in his hand, grabbed the belly with one hand and cut with the other, pulling out the reeking innards. Once he was done cleaning them out, he gave them a casual toss, and the pile of entrails landed with perfect accuracy in front of the 2 hunting dogs waiting not far away. The 2 hunting dogs pounced forward excitedly and began to feast, eating with great relish. Next, Li Shanhe bent down and easily picked up the roe deer that had been dead for quite some time, then tossed it into the gunny sack prepared beside him as casually as if it were something insignificant. After finishing that, he took a sturdy rope from the pack he had brought before entering the mountain and began carefully tying up the 2 huge sides of pork. His hands moved deftly between the cuts of meat, and in no time at all, he had them tightly bound together, deliberately leaving 2 long shoulder straps. Li Shanhe adjusted his posture and, as if putting on a backpack, hoisted the heavy pork onto his broad, sturdy back. Even though the 2 slabs of pork together weighed more than 200 jin, for someone with his astonishing strength, it hardly seemed like any burden at all. He moved his shoulders slightly to make sure the load was comfortable, then casually picked up the sack containing the roe deer from the ground and called out loudly to Third Master. Third Master, it's time for us to head back. Hearing the shout, Third Master quickly walked over. Although this was not the first time he had seen Shanhe display such tremendous strength with his own eyes, he still could not help feeling shocked every time he saw it. He thought to himself, with Shanhe's kind of strength, he could swagger through these woods with his eyes closed. But that's only if he absolutely doesn't get lost. Otherwise, even if he doesn't starve to death in these woods, he'll probably end up turning into a wild man. At this thought, Third Master could not help shaking his head, a wry smile appearing on his face. After a brief pause, Third Master continued, "We mountain hunters can't do without hunting dogs, can we? These dogs are our eyes. With them, we can spot prey more easily, find those rare mountain treasures, and make sure we can find our way home smoothly. I just happened to find a few pretty good dogs, so I might as well give them to you. And Da Huang and Lao He, who came into the mountains with us today, will also be in your care for now." As he spoke, Third Master waved a hand behind him, signaling the two hunting dogs to hurry over to Shanhe's side. Pleased with Shanhe's outstanding performance today, Third Master could not help showing his satisfaction and said that once they got home, he would give Shanhe the little booklet in which he had recorded mountain treasures over the years. That way, Shanhe could use the booklet to explore this forest alone and search for mountain treasures. However, Third Master also specifically emphasized that although Shanhe was allowed to move about in this forest, he was absolutely forbidden from setting foot in the mysterious old forest filled with unknown dangers. As for whether he was worried that Shanhe might encounter danger in the woods, Third Master Li Baocheng looked completely at ease, saying there was no need to worry about that. With that monstrous strength of his, what real danger could he possibly run into in this relatively shallow part of the forest? Even if he unfortunately ran into a fierce black bear that occasionally came down the mountain to ravage the crops, even if the two of them just stood there slapping each other, Third Master firmly believed the one who would win in the end would definitely be Shanhe. Why was Third Master so certain? One need only look at that pig's head that had been split cleanly in two to know the answer. Right in the very center of the pig's forehead was an enormous fist mark, and even the brains inside had been scattered by that astonishingly powerful punch. From this, one could see just how terrifying the power of Shanhe's fists was. After two slaps from a black bear, it had turned into a giant Siberian hamster, and even a northeast tiger would become a golden tabby with one over-the-shoulder throw. Shanhe carried all the game, leaving Third Master happily at ease. Shanhe walked in front with a cigarette in the corner of his mouth, swaying smugly, while Third Master held the gun and kept watch for him. Having just gone through all that, he really couldn't relax. But seeing Shanhe acting so pleased with himself made his hands itch. He really wanted to smack him on the back of the head a few times.